Literary Background, Part 3, Postmodernism. Imagine you're deep into a novel, the plot thickens, the characters evolve, and suddenly the narrator pauses and says, "By the way, I know you're there, reader. I can feel your skepticism." Now imagine the novel doesn't end, or rather it ends 5 different ways and lets you decide which one's real, or maybe none are. Maybe the story was never about the story at all. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Postmodernism, a literary playground where the rules of narrative are questioned, where meaning is slippery, and where authors not only break the fourth wall, they tear it down, sit next to you and ask, "What do you believe and why?" But this isn't just literary mischief. This was the literature of a world recovering from war, witnessing the rise of media, the failures of ideology, and the terrifying freedom of identity without anchors. Writers began asking questions we still ask today. What is truth? Who gets to tell the story? And what if every story is just another performance? You see, postmodernism wasn't just a style, it was a survival strategy, a way to navigate chaos, to find connection in fragmentation, and, ironically, to reveal human truths by embracing fiction's illusions. So if you've ever felt that the world no longer makes sense in the old ways it used to, you're not alone. Today, we'll meet the writers who captured that feeling first and turned it into art. On introduction, breaking the rules of reality. Welcome to the strange, satirical and mind-bending world of postmodernism and the theatre of the absurd. In the second half of the 20th century, writers and playwrights threw the rulebook out the window. They rejected linear plots, reliable narrators, and tidy resolutions. What did they offer instead? Irony, fragmentation, metafiction, and bold experimentation. Let's explore the voices that made chaos poetic. Do Vladimir Nabokov, the trickster of language. Nabokov's prose is like a magician's sleight of hand, clever, intricate, and sometimes unsettling. In Lolita, Pale Fire, and Penin, he plays with narrative layers, unreliable narrators, and moral ambiguity. Humbert and Dolores may shock us, but they also force us to examine obsession and manipulation through language itself. 3. Thomas Pynchon, Entropy and Paranoia. Dense, chaotic, and darkly funny, Pynchon's works like Gravity's Rainbow, The Crying of Lot 49, and V drop us into a world of conspiracy and cultural collapse. With characters like Tyrone Slothrop, he maps a universe where nothing is certain and everything is connected, just maybe not in the way we think. 4. Kurt Vonnegut, Science Fiction Meets Existential Satire. Vonnegut is a master of mixing time travel, absurdity, and brutal truths. In Slaughterhouse-Five, Cat's Cradle, and Breakfast of Champions, he uses dark humor to explore war, science, free will, and the ridiculousness of modern life. Billy Pilgrim's Journey reminds us how reality can be stranger than fiction, and funnier too. 5. John Barth, the Metafiction Maestro. Barth's Lost in the Funhouse, The Sotweed Factor, and Giles Goatboy don't just tell stories, they comment on how stories are told. His characters, like Ebenezer Cook, exist in a world of self-awareness, irony, and narrative loops. With Barth, the narrator is part of the show. 6. Don DeLillo, Noise, Fear, and Modern Anxieties. Consumerism, media saturation, and looming paranoia, these are the themes Don DeLillo unpacks in White Noise, Libra, and Underworld. With characters like Jack Gladney, DeLillo examines how identity crumbles under the pressure of mass culture and fear. 7. Toni Morrison, Memory, Magic, and Identity. In Beloved, Song of Solomon, and The Bluest Eye, Morrison merges lyrical beauty with historical pain. Seethy's haunting story in Beloved blends magical realism with the trauma of slavery, while Morrison's prose sings with depth, symbolism, and emotional power. 8. Margaret Atwood, Dystopias and Power. Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, Cat's Eye, and Alias Grace imagine futures and pasts where control, gender, and memory are at stake. With characters like Offred, Atwood creates sharp critiques of patriarchy and power, wrapped in gripping speculative fiction. 9. Angela Carter, subversive fairy tales. Angela Carter rewrites myths with gothic flair and feminist fire. In The Bloody Chamber, Nights at the Circus, and The Magic Toy Shop, characters like Fevers defy traditional roles. Carter's lush, symbolic prose turns every tale into an act of rebellion. 10. Doris Lessing, fragmented selves and political currents. In The Golden Notebook, The Grass is Singing, and Shikasta, Doris Lessing dives into divided identities, feminism, and speculative futures. Her characters, like Anna Wolfe, face inner and outer conflicts with brutal honesty. Her style is layered, political, and daring. 11. Joseph Heller, Bureaucracy and Madness. With Catch-22 and Something Happened, Heller coined the term that defines absurdity in war. Catch-22. John Yossarian, stuck in an endless loop of logic and death, becomes the perfect anti-hero in a system gone mad. Heller's satire cuts deep and still feels relevant. 12. Martin Amis, satirizing the modern mess. In Money, London Fields, and Time's Arrow, Martin Amis explores greed, decay, and time itself. Characters like John Self stumble through excess and corruption with wit and irony. Amis dissects modernity with biting prose and twisted timelines. 13. Ian McEwan, Quiet Tragedies and Moral Complexity. McEwan's Atonement, The Cement Garden, and Black Dog center on guilt, memory, and the human cost of misunderstanding. Brian E. Tallis's mistaken atonement changes lives and literature. His elegant, introspective style demands reflection and empathy. 14. Cormac McCarthy, The Bleak Sublime. From Blood Meridian to The Road, McCarthy explores violence, myth, and survival. Characters like the Kid and the Judge live in a world stripped of comfort. With biblical intensity and stark imagery, McCarthy makes the end of civilization feel strangely poetic. 15. Kazuo Ishiguro, Elegance and Regret. In The Remains of the Day, Never Let Me Go, and An Artist of the Floating World, Ishiguro examines quiet sorrow and emotional restraint. Stevens, the loyal but emotionally stifled butler, shows us how memory and self-deception shape our lives. 16. William S. Burroughs, Cut-Ups and Control. Burroughs breaks narrative into pieces. In Naked Lunch, Junkie, and The Soft Machine, he uses hallucinatory imagery and non-linear prose to tackle addiction, control, and societal rot. William Lee, his alter ego, is both witness and victim of this chaos. 17. John Fowles' Choice and the Power of Storytelling. In The French Lieutenant's Woman, The Magus, and The Collector, Fowles blurs history and fiction. Characters like Sarah Woodruff confront freedom, illusion, and metafictional puzzles. Multiple endings and author intrusions make his work playful and philosophical. 18. Samuel Beckett, The Poetry of Nothingness. Beckett's Waiting for Godot, Endgame, and Krapp's Last Tape turn emptiness into art. Vladimir and Estragon wait and wait. With minimalist dialogue and repetitive action, Beckett captures the absurdity of existence and the stubborn hope of human beings. 19. Harold Pinter, Silence Speaks Volumes. In plays like The Homecoming, The Birthday Party, and Betrayal, Harold Pinter uses strategic silences and ambiguous dialogue to expose power struggles. Characters like Max live in worlds of tension, where what's unsaid often carries the most weight. 20. Tom Stoppard, Wit, Wordplay, and Deep Questions. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, Arcadia and The Real Thing are intellectual playgrounds. With characters like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, Stoppard explores fate, performance, and the absurdity of logic. His scripts sparkle with humor and depth. 21. Edward Albee, Illusions and Verbal Battles. Albee's plays like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, The Zoo Story, and the Goat Strip relationships Bear, Martha and George engage in psychological warfare, exposing illusions and emotional wounds. Albee's dialogue is sharp, revealing, and brutally honest. 22. Carol Churchill, feminist experimentation on stage. Churchill challenges structure and society in Top Girls, Cloud Nine, and Far Away. Characters like Marlene question power, time, and gender. With ensemble casting and fragmented timelines, Churchill pushes theatre into new revolutionary spaces. 23. David Mamet, Power and Profit in Every Word. In Glengarry Glen Ross, Oleanna, and American Buffalo, Mamet shows how language is weaponized. Characters like Ricky Roma use dialogue like daggers. His stylized rhythms and aggressive realism unveil the ruthless nature of capitalism and masculinity. 24. August Wilson, Legacy, Struggle, and Song. Wilson's Fences, The Piano Lesson, and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom chronicle Black American life across decades. Through Troy Rose and Corey Maxon, Wilson celebrates family, memory, and resistance. His plays are rich with music, pain, and cultural pride. 25. Julian Barnes, Memory and the Art of Storytelling. In Flaubert's Parrot, The Sense of an Ending, and Arthur and George, Barnes questions how we remember, what we forget, and whether any story is truly true. Tony Webster's reflections blur the line between fact and fiction. Barnes crafts narrative as philosophical exploration. 26. Paul Auster, Identity in the Urban Maze. Auster's New York trilogy, Moon Palace, and The Book of Illusions blur detective fiction with existential mystery. Quinn, often a version of Auster himself, wanders through questions of self and reality. Minimalist and metafictional, Auster's world is haunting and profound. 27. Conclusion. Truth is fiction's greatest illusion. Postmodernism and the theatre of the absurd dismantled what we thought literature was. These writers and playwrights showed us that stories aren't always meant to resolve. Characters don't always grow, and endings don't always make sense. And that's the point. They made us laugh, think, and sometimes just sit in silence. Now it's your turn. Revisit these works, share them, question them. Because in a world where meaning is uncertain, literature remains one of our most powerful tools for navigating the absurd. For more information, join us at our YouTube channel and Instagram account.